Hello and welcome to this session. We are going to talk a little bit about traditional monitoring tools and how they are not the right thing to have for operational blind spots. Your software is constantly generating signals. Now, with traditional monitoring tools, they often fall short in dynamic IT environments, which lead to costly outages and performance issues and operational blind spots. In this webinar, we will be talking about how AI powered automated observability can transform the way you manage IT performance. And over the course of the conversation, you will learn how real time insights with 1 second granularity empower teams to proactively detect issues before they impact users, reducing downtime and ensuring efficiency. To take you through this conversation, I have with me Mr. Dhruva Ji, who's the technology pre sales for IBM. Dhruva, welcome to the session. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Vaishnavi. Glad to be here. Welcome to all the participants.
Thank you for joining us, Dhruva. It's great having you on board for this conversation, and observability is one of my favorite topics, so I'll be looking forward to it as well. So here's how the session will go. There will be a presentation by Dhruva. I'll leave the floor completely to him, and post which we will take the questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, kindly drop them in the chat box available, and we will have them answered at the end of the session. I repeat, if you have any questions posed during the session, kindly drop them in the chat box and we will have them answered at the end of the session. Now let's get things going. All right, Dhruva, these are the insights for you. And I would request you to take over from here. And I'll also be keen to hear how observability or AI powered observability can help enterprises gain efficiency. The floor is yours.
Right. Welcome everybody to this session on observability. And this is IBM's flagship product called IBM Instana. And as most of you mentioned in the final poll, that was what is the most challenging element for you to observe. And it's scattered across everything. Some enterprises have challenges with cloud infrastructure. Some of them have on difficulty in understanding what's happening on their on-premise infrastructure. And of course, some of them have issue in monitoring end user performance. So Instana is designed for enterprises across these spectrum. And regardless of where your enterprise is in terms of the maturity, in terms of how your observability is, Instana can support you and ensure you get complete visibility. So with that, welcome to the session. I know it's end of the financial year and also Thursday afternoon. So extremely thankful for each and every one of you for being present in this webinar. So before we get started, my name is Dhruva and I'm part of the technology sales unit in IBM, and I work in the automation platform and consult clients in South India for automation observability. So before we get started, let's set the context on why observability is important and how is it really different from monitoring. And that was one of the questions that we asked. Now, enterprises today just cannot observe, have another outage or cannot have downtime. And the reason is shareholders and customers take it very seriously. The moment you see an outage or you see there is some disruption in, business as usual, customers usually prefer, moving to another, competitor where there is no such outage. For example, if you're a large bank and your UPI systems goes down for a couple of minutes, within a minute, someone's already transacting with another bank. And this is very similar across enterprises. It could be across healthcare, it could be across e-commerce, could be across various industries that are present on the internet. And that's really why enterprises today are looking at proactively managing outages and ensuring they're able to gain insights on performance and identify bottlenecks before they become evident to the end user. And that's really why observability has taken the center stage today. And IBM's invested heavily in looking at how we can help enterprises in ensuring downtime and outages are not as commonplace as they used to be. And today, with the kind of distributed environment we have, such a complex hybrid environment, it's simply not possible to have a single monitoring tool that does everything. So IBM brings together insights from across the stack, from all the way from infrastructure to your end users, and stitches it and correlates it together to give you meaningful insights. And with these insights, you're able to save time in figuring out where the issues happen, and it also makes it far more easier for you to, go and fight the problem instead of figuring out whose problem it is to solve. And from the scenario of say a couple of years back when it was very common to have war rooms, where a lot of people just used to huddle in a room and try to break their heads on where the problem is and where how they could come up with this fix. Now you have more data driven insights on identifying the problem, doing a more clinical root cause analysis, and using the power of AI to quickly triage and solve issues. And one of the studies that we saw from McKinsey was if there's an operational risk or a disruption in business, the equity losses or the reputational losses are 5 times greater than direct financial losses. So this is quite important because today your reputation is built on an everyday basis. Gone are those days, where you could rest on your laurels and just wait for customers to wait for the outage to become back, back and get back to normal. Today, if there's a disruption, customers are very quick to switch to another enterprise. So, with such a volatile and an uncertain environment, how can Instana help you? And that will be the discussion today. And towards the end of this webinar, I'll also take you through a demo, so you don't have to listen to what I have to say, but rather get a look and feel of the platform, and also understand how simple it is for end users and business users to quickly get hold of the platform. So that is the agenda for today, and I'll take you through the presentation on observability and also take you through some of the compelling features that Instana provides to our enterprises. The main problem today is enterprises cannot fix what they cannot see. With a distributed and highly complex system or microservices led architecture, we are not in those days of monolithic architecture where you had a single monolithic application or architecture, and it was very easy to observe what is going wrong, and you could easily understand the downstream impact of one of the applications going down. But with such a connected and decentralized architecture, that is the microservice architecture, it's important for you to gain visibility first before you start fixing problems. And if these problems are allowed to fester for a long time and they keep, building up over a period of time, and eventually there's an outage that you could have prevented a couple of weeks back. So that's really the importance of having real-time visibility, and that is something Instana brings to its enterprises. It makes sure you're getting data from across different applications, platforms, and infrastructure, and pulls it all together to build a cohesive story on where your application could potentially go wrong, and where are situations where there could be bottlenecks or where there could be incidents of your application going down. So Instana brings to you visibility, and that empowers you to take decisions that are relevant, data driven, and agile. Sadly, applications today are more complex than ever before. Just look at the image in front of you. There are so many components that are interacting, and it's such a volatile and uncertain kind of environment. You have different end users accessing your applications from different interfaces. Some could be on mobile, some could be on your web browser, and these are routed through different channels. These could be your workloads could be on the cloud. There could be some applications which are business critical, which are running on prem, and this could also have components which have been virtualized and which are running on VMware. So if you look at it, it's quite a complex and it's easy for things to go haywire because you don't have control over a single unidirectional flow, and information is flowing across different interfaces, different channels, and different types of platforms. So with such a kind of environment like the one in front of you, if there is an outage or a performance issue in one of these components, it becomes very evident there could be immediate downstream impact, and you never know where the problem even started in the first place. So instead of fixing three problems, if you could find out where is the root cause of this particular problem causing this latency, for example, latency issue. Now, if I fix that particular issue, it's far more easier for me to ensure that the other components start behaving as normal. And that's the power of observability. It does not tell you what is going wrong, it tells you why something is going wrong. And one of the poll questions we asked you, are monitoring and observability the same? Unfortunately, they're not. Monitoring is a very small subset of just looking at the metrics. You're just looking at data as it flows in. So think of it like seeing a cricket match. You don't have context of what's happening in the match. You're just seeing a stream of numbers appear before you, and you're not able to analyze what is happening in the match. But think of observability like getting more insights, having an expert view, and you're actually looking at why a particular thing is happening. You're able to understand the context of applications going down. You're able to understand why certain calls are not, being successful. Why are there latency or performance gaps that are coming in my application? So monitoring only looks at your software and looks at the metrics. Observability tells you why something is going wrong, and it gives you the complete context of all the metrics, events, logs that are flowing in, bundles it together, and makes it far more easier for you to consume. So therefore, enterprises today do not adopt monitoring because these are siloed applications. You could have a monitoring for your database, you could have another monitoring for your applications, and you could have another cloud native monitoring tool for your cloud infrastructure. But who's going to get the data together and synthesize it? And that's the job of observability. It does not create disparate systems which cause far more problems. and it breaks these silos to bring data and information in context so that you can automate most of these work that you're doing manually today. And with that, we'll understand what are some of the problems that observability can solve for you. Traditionally, the way we've looked at solving problems is the the very common blame game, right? So, example, if an application goes down, they're very quick to pass the bug to the infrastructure team, saying that you're not provisioning the right resources for my application, and they then point fingers to the network team. Then it's a never-ending blame game that where people just pass the buck to each other, and no one takes accountability for the platform that they're responsible for. And with such kind of hostile environment, it's difficult for you to fix problems before your end users start reporting it. So how do we go from this reactive and a reactive approach where people are complaining about other teams not doing their job, but instead look at data and understand where the issues cropping up and how you can use the very same data that came your way to actually go and triage that issue much faster instead of waiting for other people to fix their problems. So Instana helps you go from such an environment like the one in front of you to something that is more collaborative, which brings people together to solve problems. It brings back the effort in streamlining the problem and solving it instead of passing it around to different teams to kind of stitch together a solution that might not even be the right way of solving this particular issue. So IBM Instana is offers real-time observability for everyone and across enterprises. And it gives you all the data from your infrastructure to platforms, applications, and your end user applications. And it gives you context. And what we mean by context is it gives you the narrative of why a particular metric could potentially be a red flag. And it stitches together this information by looking at it holistically instead of looking at it in silos. And the second thing is it uses AI and ML, and it uses a lot of proprietary data on which it's been trained to identify thresholds where there is a possibility of something going wrong. And that is the power of having an observability tool that has been trained on enterprise data and that can actually find out problems proactively and help you get to problems before your end users start reporting it. So with Instana, teams can now automate their full stack visibility, collect the data together in context. What this means is you're able to collect all the data from disparate silos and bring it together to make sense. So if there's a root cause analysis that you want to do, it's very easy to jump from your infrastructure to your applications or to your end users and figure out where in this entire stack did the problem start showing up. And finally, you don't look at enterprises today don't need more dashboards. They have enough dashboards. They need intelligent automated action. With Instana, enterprises can now have smart alerts, can set thresholds without having to define them. So Instana is able to understand what the thresholds are before something starts going wrong. And you don't have to do any of this manually. We take a lot of work away from your IT teams and give back a lot of time to do productive and collaborative work instead of doing firefighting. And that's one of the capabilities of Instana, to take teams from a firefighting approach to more collaborative and a future looking kind of organization. Because teams rely on Instana today, they're able to see far more time given back to teams for development, and engineers today don't have to solve these IT problems. They can look at driving innovation and driving business value instead of having to firefight. Secondly, because you're sure about how you're deploying, you're sure about the different components working together and how they're orchestrated together, you're now able to be more confident in your deployments, and you can build far stronger deployment pipelines where if there's an issue that comes up, you're very quick to solve it. And this builds the confidence in teams to quickly create an iterative and a DevOps mindset instead of having very slow and iterative testing and deployment processes. Finally, and most importantly, is the efficiency drives in teams. With Instana, enterprises report up to 50% reduction in mean time to resolve. And if you're having almost half the time given back to you in resolving these issues, and there are plenty of issues that come out, it just shows you the power of having automation across your enterprise and not relying on manual and iterative work that could be done by Instana. Because today enterprises have such a large estate that it's beyond the human scale to have a manual solution for these bugs. And these bugs just do not stop coming. There is always a probability of an outage happening. With Instana, we do the work that AI and automation has to do so that your teams can focus on creative, collaborative, and productive work. The way we've designed Instana is to be hybrid. And what we mean by this is we don't want separate monitoring tools for across the stack. And this will help enterprises elevate their observability posture and also ensure that data is correlated and cohesive when they're analyzing it. With Instana, enterprises can now move away from siloed tools they're using. These could be cloud native or your native monitoring tools, and focus on something that is a more structured and a more streamlined approach to observability. This will help teams improve their visibility over their entire stack, increase agility in solving these problems, and finally give them a look at the big picture. They don't look at IT as a singular modularized component, but rather look at IT as a whole and see how individual components can affect the entire performance of the application. Finally, you also get control over your IT, and you have a centralized platform that gives you a narrative that is compelling and that is far more easy for teams to absorb and to take action instead of having a lot of data and being lost in a maze of data instead of figuring out how do I fix this problem. With Instana, enterprises today have full stack monitoring. What we mean by full stack monitoring of observability is they have a complete picture from infra to platforms to services all the way to the end user. So if you see the screen here, you see that we have auto instrumented and auto discovered the entire infrastructure. So the moment an agent is deployed, it has over 300 technologies that it supports, and it auto discovers these infrastructure components all the way from your mainframe to your mobile. So everything in between, and 300 technologies it auto discovers and starts collecting data from these different components. And it also gives you dependency mapping and correlates different parts of the components together. So for example, if you had an e-commerce application, and even though you don't define these rules manually, it will tell you that these are the, for example, this is a catalog, this is a user logging into the application, and this is the checkout page, this is the payment gateway, and this is the confirmation page, and this is the loyalty program. So it brings all these services together, stitches them together, and sees how they behave in conjunction with each other instead of looking at these as isolated components and microservices. Finally, Instana is extremely easy to configure and maintain, and it has the capability to auto discover and auto instrument the metrics that it collects. And also, the way it does the tracing is all auto instrumented. So you don't have to manually set up these policies or thresholds, and it does it from day one. So that is the power of Instana to take your IT and turn it into a more compelling and a powerful resource for you to do monitoring. So here's on a lighter vein, we also see the power of having 1 second granularity. One of the things that sets Instana apart is the fact that we measure metrics at a 1 second granularity. What we mean by that is we look at metrics as it comes every second, and we don't do a sampling of the data. We don't take average of the metrics that are coming in. Now, if you see the first example, if you don't have visibility over the first 10 seconds and you get a metric that comes, pops up in the last 10 seconds, you're able to identify that maybe there's an event that's occurred or maybe there's an outcome, but you don't have the story of why this particular outcome came. And you also stand a chance to miss some of the important events that could have happened in the preceding, 10 seconds or 1 minute. With Instana, you're able to see the complete drama as it unfolds, and you're able to stitch it together and actually identify where things started going wrong, and you can drill down to 1 second granularity. And this is how we've created a platform where we don't look at averages, or we don't look at data sampling, but we give you as close to real time as possible and high fidelity data that actually mimics how your IT is behaving. And with such a powerful and easy to use interface, and also the combining with 1 second granularity, you have complete context and you're empowered to take decisions that you can go back and justify and defend. You don't have to depend on averages, guesses, or uh, kind of having a hunch that this could be a problem, but rather you have data driven insights that you can use to justify why you took a particular action and why you think that is the right way going forward. So as I mentioned earlier, enterprises today don't need a lot more dashboards. They have quite a lot of dashboards. They have a lot of intelligence, a lot of workflows that are built. Instana brings to you intelligent automation. It brings you the power of looking at different segments of your IT, and also understand where things are going wrong with the help of quick queries. No longer do you have to write complex queries and set a lot of parameters to get to the problem. You can just click on a problem, click on view and analytics, and you're able to have a query that's generated, and it also shows you problem and related components that are affected. You also are able to see the dependency mapping. For example, as I mentioned, if it's a e-commerce gateway, you could see the components that are interlinked, and you could also see how is the performance of these and what are the calls that are being generated to this. So here quickly you can look at the latency, you can look at the number of errors that are coming in, and if there's a problem that happens in one of the components, you're able to quickly try and solve this instead of trying to solve it at the end user level. So it helps you identify problems much quicker, and it also helps you break down different siloed microservices which are very hard to monitor and very hard to get insights out of, and it brings it all together, auto discovers it, and gives you on one single graph, making it far more easier for you to try its problems and identify what are the endpoints that are affected, and also see what are the dependency and mapping between different components. Finally, Instana ties together the four, holy grail of monitoring, that is your metrics, events, logs, and traces, MELT, so that you can accelerate your root cause analysis. It brings together all the information together so that you're able to get complete context of issues, why they've happened, and use that to solve problems. You don't have to depend on isolated metrics, you don't have to depend on logs that are coming in, but rather look at the whole holistic picture and then take an action that is relevant for that particular outage or downtime. Let's look at why enterprises today love Instana. We work with some of the largest enterprises across the world, and these include, highly regulated industries like banking, healthcare, and also modern day born in the cloud applications such as e-commerce websites, and also giants that are into different industries across manufacturing, finance, as well as modern day startups. The reasons enterprises love Instana is because we offer predictable pricing. Instana has one of the simplest and most transparent ways of pricing based on the number of virtual machines on which monitoring is being done. Regardless of the size of the virtual machine, this number of users that are using the application, that's Instana, or the the memory or the size of the virtual machine, all of it boils down to one license. And your observability goals do not have to depend on which tier of Instana you buy. Instana comes bundled with the entire full stack monitoring, including end user monitoring, synthetic monitoring, and infrastructure monitoring. Therefore, you can deploy the power of Instana across the enterprise and have 100% observability. Your budget or your, the cost of the licensing should not come in the way of observability, and Instana unlocks that for you. It gives you complete power of understanding your application, and also makes pricing extremely transparent so that you're not guessing what could be the pricing, and you're not having to create estimates on what the pricing could be. You can be very sure of what the pricing and licensing model is so that you can focus on observability instead of focusing on licensing terms and identifying what are the critical applications I want to monitor. One of the use cases that we recently saw was one of our customers was using a competitor, and because the solution was so expensive and had a lot of variable components to it, they were only monitoring certain business critical applications. But once they moved to Instana, they were able to expand that to across their entire IT enterprise because we offered transparent and simple pricing, and it costed them far lesser than the limited monitoring that they were doing. So that's really the power of Instana's licensing to make it accessible for enterprises. The second thing is real-time monitoring. Instana offers you 1 second granularity, and we don't sample your data. We give you high fidelity and real-time data so that you're accountable to the data that is in front of you, and you're able to take decisions that are correct and that are justifiable in a later period. Instana's dashboard, as I'll show in the demo, is extremely intuitive and simple to use. We've designed Instana for end users, business users, and not really, technology freaks or, engineering teams. This is meant for the everyday user who wants to quickly solve problem instead of having to write out complex queries and, build a complex logic or workflow for solving these problems. And Instana makes it easier for your IT teams to quickly learn the platform, get used to it, and you'll be able to start seeing value within a couple of weeks or probably a week itself. Instana is part of IBM's robust automation ecosystem, and our portfolio is one of the most comprehensive in the industry. We do everything in IT automation, starting from observability, that's from Instana. We also do resource optimization and management. We also help enterprises in their FinOps practice, help them in their network monitoring, and also help them in incident management. So we give a complete story of your IT automation, and different enterprises based on their use cases and needs have the ability to look at what works best for them. And with IT automation, your teams can focus on what's most important, that's driving business. Solving IT should be IBM's problem. Enterprises don't have to figure out why their IT has an outage or why there's a performance issue, because we do that for you. You can focus your time and invest it in innovation and creating a competitive advantage. And that's why we position automation as a competitive lever that you can rely on to expand your business, as well as ensure that you're always able to drive innovation instead of focusing on firefighting. Finally, Instana has full stack monitoring. We look at everything from your infrastructure to your end users, and all of it is combined in one single license. So, with the power of Instana, you're able to look at the complete IT as it is, and you're able to get high fidelity real time data and take decisions that are driven by data, and the ones that you can quickly automate. And you're able to focus a lot more on solving and triaging problems instead of having to have a blame game where different people are kind of blaming each other. One of the interesting case studies we have is of a large enterprise which is into the mutual banking sector in France. Uh, this particular company has more than 11,000 employees and has a turnaround of 2.5 billion euros. So these are kind of enterprises that we work with, extremely regulated, extremely critical applications that are running, and Instana does a great job in monitoring it. And the main value proposition of Instana is saving time and therefore saving money. When we save a lot of time in finding these issues and also make your teams more efficient in solving these issues, it gives back so much more time for enterprises to go and focus on what's important. With Instana, this particular enterprise was able to have 275 business users using it. Again, it's a testament to how intuitive the platform is and how simple it is for enterprises to start using Instana from day one. And with Instana, they were able to monitor 14,000 instances. So these are, just imagine the complexity of 14,000 virtual machines and having to have an Excel sheet that kind of tracks where problems are happening. We look at 14,000 instances and we give them data which is being used by three different teams. This could be the development team, the operations teams, as well as the business teams, so that each of them have the view that is most important to them, and they're able to use this to drive their particular vertical and make sure they do a good job at it. Finally, Instana has improved the application stability because enterprises today can look at how applications are performing, and if there's a degradation in performance, they can quickly get to solving that particular bottleneck and improve how your end user experiences. And because today we live in a world where customer loyalty is paramount for each of us, it's important to have applications that are enterprise ready, and Instana will help you get there. This is one such case study. There are hundreds of other case studies with our enterprises work with some of the largest Fortune 100 companies in the world. And this is a testament to the trust they've reposed in IBM, because we focus on what is enterprise, how to make enterprises ready to market, and make sure that any IT problem is proactively managed instead of having a reactive approach. Finally, IT teams sleep well when they use Instana, because Instana is a simple, easy to use platform, and it gives back a lot of time that they can reinvest in trying to fix particular engineering problems and work on what's really important, creative, and innovative, instead of having to do some of the manual work that they're doing today. And that's the capability that Instana brings to our enterprises. So with that, I think we've had enough of talking. Let's probably spend some time understanding how the Instana platform looks, and probably we'll do a quick demo on understanding how quickly we can solve a particular problem. And post that, we'll open our audience for questions, and I'll be more than happy to take them.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Dhruva, that was so insightful. Thank you so much for walking us meticulously through all the details. I believe you want to do a demo. That would be good idea for our audience also to retain the information. But before we move to demo, I have one more poll question for the audience. My dear colleague Ragini will put it up on the screen. Ragini, may we have a poll question, please? All right, your last poll question. What is your biggest challenge when integrating observability into your existing system? Is it data overload? Is it difficulty in correlating metrics, logs, and traces for troubleshooting? Is it lack of proper tooling or integration with our current stack? Or last and final, ensuring observability scales effectively with your growing infrastructure? Is it data overload? Is it difficulty in correlating? Is it lack of tools, which is we also call silos or segmentation? Or ensuring observability scaling? So which one of it is your biggest challenge? 5 seconds, we will have the results. Difficulty in correlating metrics, logs, and traces for troubleshooting is the highest, equally followed by lack of proper tooling, which is silos or integration with the current stack, and then ensuring observability scale. So scale is also a problem. Last would be data overload, managing large amounts of logs and metrics. So here we have Dhruva, difficulty in correlating metrics, logs, and access for troubleshooting still remains the biggest challenge. Over to you for the demo.
So this is Instana's view. This is our platform, and you quickly, we'll spend some time understanding what are the different components of it, and probably we'll do a quick exercise on solving a particular, error that's shown by the system. So firstly, we can see the granularity that we can get to. So all the way from a 1 second granularity to previous week, and we can also extend it, based on the time frame for which you want to analyze the data. So this will help you understand whether your IT team wants to look at metrics as they're flowing in, or if you want to look at it as a more aggregate level, where you want to look back at how your performance was for the last 7 days. And let me give you an example of why this is important. Let's say that there was a big event or a big e-commerce sale that was coming up, and you wanted to understand what is the performance of my application during this particular sale. And that's when you look at how the application performed over the last 7 days, and also look at what were some of the metrics that you can use to create an audit report, and also see whether your applications are resilient and something that can withstand the number of increased users that were logging into the application. So if you look at the sidebar, we see that there are different components, as I was mentioning. That's the full stack monitoring. So you can look infra monitoring, you can look at platforms. These could be your vSphere, it could be your SAP platforms, or it could also be IBM software if you're using IBM software. And you also look at applications. These could be your microservices, and these could be different parts of applications that are doing, containerized or modularized part of the entire, application that you're running. And you also look at end user monitoring. We also call this as digital experience monitoring, where we are looking at how your end users are reacting to a particular, kind of application or a website. And we support across both website as well as mobile apps. So this is particularly useful for consumer applications and also B2B applications, where it's extremely critical for you to ensure there are no downtime when your end users are accessing your particular applications. So let's quickly start with end user monitoring, and we'll see if we are able to figure out what are some of the ways in which I can analyze this. So let's see over let's say last 6 hours. So we've selected the last 6 hours for doing our analysis. We see that there are no issues that were reported, and we also look at for this particular website, that's Robot Shop. We can also set filters based on what type of analysis I want to do. Let's say I want to look at all the Windows users, say particularly from let's say the United States, and we also want to see what browser they were uh, using to get to my particular website. Let's say they were trying to access from Chrome. So here we get to know that in the last 6 hours, there were 632 end users who were looking at my particular website, and there were 243 page transactions. That means there were like your end users are interacting 243 times. Some end users do not actually transact through the website. So 243 transitions took place. And we also have metrics on what is the load time, 90th percentile, and what is the mean load time. So you see that it takes around 202 milliseconds for in the last 6 hours for your users to get to the website. So here you see that these dashboards are generated out of the box, and we have a consistency across different platforms. So if you go from website monitoring to application monitoring, you'll see that there are similar dashboards that are generated. So you don't have to figure out and spend time on understanding what these particular graphs mean. You can quickly get accustomed to it, and you can also set up custom dashboards if interested. But these are out of the box metrics that we define, and we're able to see what are the page views as time progressed, and we also see what are some of the errors that are reported. Let's say we want to look at this particular error. We see that there are 3 errors that have been reported. Now I don't have to write a complex query to figure out what these 3 errors are. I just click on the 3 errors, I click on view and analyze, and without clicking anything, I've actually come down and I've figured out where the errors are. So right now, because this is a demo instance, it's not mapped the errors, but you will be able to let's say for the last 6 hours, yeah, you'll be able to see the beacon count, the number of errors that have flown in, and you can also see you can drill down further and understand what these errors are. So we see that there is a particular error that's come in, and this is for this particular user who has logged this particular error. We also see which region was affected, and we have a stack trace to understand, okay, what is the component that actually causes error. So you can actually go down all the way to a call level analysis. So we see that the particular page is loaded. Then we see that the style sheet, that is your front end CSS or your styling was loaded on the screen, and we see the different transactions that actually took place before an error was there. So you see that there's an error that was identified after these particular this trace was like followed. So I don't have to actually go back and analyze this error. I can just click on this and I get a complete stack trace. I can copy this stack trace, give it to my engineering team, and I can also look at the raw stack trace to understand why this particular error is coming, and I can give this to my DevOps team for them to figure out where this particular issue is cropping in. So we see where it is at a like even at a file level, where we see that at this particular file, that's the main.js file, we have an error that's happened at 917. So this is the level of analysis that you can drill down to, and you can also look at some of for this same application, you can also look at different metrics such as speed, your load times. You can look at what are the other resources that are connected to it. So suppose you have a Google fonts that you're using, you can also measure that. Let's say you're using some fonts from the Google API. You're also able to see whether these are performing well, because if this particular API goes down, it affects the way your website is rendered. And you can also drill down to different HTTPS requests that came in, and if you just look at these requests, you can also do a request level analysis in terms of latency, in terms of errors that have come in. Finally, you can also look at synthetic monitoring. What we mean by synthetic monitoring is you can set up performance tests, or you can set up tests for different cloud environments based on where the workloads are, and ensure that applications are performing, assuming that users were using it. So before you roll out an application, you can use synthetic monitoring to simulate a workload of different users accessing it, and you can check if your application is able to sustain it. It is similar to performance testing, but the difference here is you're able to identify which particular node or infrastructure you want to place the workload on, and you're able to identify if your application is working fine and drill down to where issues or bottlenecks are existing. So that is what is possible with Instana. Now let's look at, we'll decompose it from a website all the way to let's say a more granular and more containerized kind of analysis, that is your application analysis. So here we quickly are able to see that there's one issue, but before we get to this, let's quickly have a look at the dashboard. Again, we have the same metrics out of the box that are defined, so you can quickly get to finding these problems. And let's say you want to investigate something, you can just view that particular segment and analyze, and you can also drill down further and look at different metrics. This could be your different percentiles, it could be a mean. So based on what your SLAs are, you're able to report it. So if you have a particular e-commerce sale, you can report to your team what your metrics are based on different percentiles. And the most crucial thing of Instana is it gives you a dependency graph, and this is very important for enterprises because it gives them a complete picture. It doesn't give siloed information, so you can actually see that this was the front end and what are the kind of components it's connected to. So this could be your databases, it could be your different microservices, it could be your messaging queues, and you're able to see it as the call flows in. So you see here that there are a lot of erroneous calls that are flowing in. So if you see this red dots that are flowing into this, you're able to see there could be something that could be potentially wrong here. So the moment you click on it, you're able to understand and investigate that as well. You can also drill down based on the downstream services and the upstream components that are related to it. So this will help you get a more detailed overview of your entire application, and you're also able to do your log analysis as well as get your errors in one place, so that you're able to do the complete analysis and audit instead of having to jump to different tools to do your logging and finding out errors. So let's quickly see what this particular issue is and if you can solve it. So I just don't have to click on any particular graph to take me to this issue. I just click on this particular thing and it shows me what the open issue is. I click on this, and this issue again has not been instrumented by me. This has been auto-instrumented by Instana. It uses thresholds based on its AI algorithms and figures out where a particular threshold is being breached, and it automatically gives you an error. And it also shows you that there could be a particular service impact, showing that this particular thing is crucial for me to solve. We also are able to drill down into what are the metrics that prompted this particular issue, and we see that there are some critical violations that are flowing in for this particular segment. So let's quickly analyze what are some of the calls and see if we're able to try drill down and understand what the problems are. So here we are able to see that this particular service has a lot of calls that are having errors. So once we click on a particular call, it shows you a stack level trace. It shows you the timeline after it started and shows the different, the different steps that it took before an error was logged. And you can also drill down to a call level analysis and see, what are the calls that were, like what are the calls that were hitting the system before an error was logged. And you see here that errors are reported for these particular calls. So you can also drill down just by clicking on this. You don't have to write any queries for it, and you can see that all of these are linked, so you don't have to, go back to a particular application and try to find it. You can just click on it; it takes you right there. This side, it also shows you what is the latency which flagged this particular error. This has a latency of 1600 milliseconds. And it also shows you where was the source of this particular call and what are the impacted downstream application. So it shows you here that your IBM App Connect could potentially be affected. So it gives you the type of error. This was a status code error and gives you a stack trace. So that is the level of depth that you can drill down to, and you don't have to click on any particular sequence of steps to get here. You can just click on one button and presto, you're already in this particular screen. You see the error type, you see the container on which it's placed. You're also able to see the API name. You're also able to drill down to the object type. So what you're able to see is you're getting a complete picture of the infrastructure on which this problem is identified, and this makes it far more easier for you to do a root cause analysis instead of having to manually find out where this particular workload is placed. If enterprises are interested, they can also write custom scripts that can help you price these issues automatically. So let's say we click on this particular thing. You can also create a workflow that will help you automate solving this particular thing using a predefined script that runs every time this particular error comes in. So let's return back to the application. We were on this particular application. So if you look at the event that we've checked, you can set up, it recommends some of the actions, and very soon you'll also be able to chat with it with our own enterprise grade AI. So in the next release, you'll be able to query on these particular events, and your teams don't have to, go and look at Stack Overflow. They can get trusted information and credible information with IBM's own proprietary LLM platform that's called watsonx. And you can also have automation policies. These can be scripts that you create, and these scripts can be automatically executed once these errors have been identified. And we also have different types of monitoring. This could be your SAP monitoring for ABAP. So we have sensors for SAP monitoring, and if you click on this particular instance, you're also able to look at the workload as well as the memory metrics that you can get in, as well as the user information based on this particular workload, right? So you're able to see who are the users that are trying to access your particular platforms, and also look at metrics of how different components are performing. Finally, we also look at the most important, that's infrastructure monitoring. And infra monitoring, we support a lot of technologies out of the box. We auto discover it. And once I click on a particular, say, a particular node, I'm able to see what are the issues that have been detected. This is an SAP HANA, infra. So I see that CPU utilization has exceeded 90%. I just click on this, and I'm able to do a root cause analysis much more quickly. And also I can look at some of the recommended actions that IBM suggests to try this particular issue. Let's look at it. If you look at it, it has crossed the 98% CPU utilization. And in case I want to look at some of the monitoring issues, I can also see what are the metrics that I use to monitor this particular infrastructure, and what are some of the metrics on which this particular issue is identified. So with infra monitoring, we also are able to quickly look at, say, your data centers. So you can create views for your data centers. So you can create filters based on your necessity. So if you have a business critical application, you can tag it as business critical, and only those particular things can show up. So it's far more easy for you to look at isolated pieces of infrastructure instead of looking at the entire picture. So we also have an ability to set up smart alerts. What we mean by smart alert is you can create enterprise specific and SLA based alerts that you can set to any particular chat ops. This could be your Teams, it could be your Outlook, it could be your Slack. So the moment you integrate it, you can all get metrics even without having to be on the platform. And you also get automatically alerted in case there's a downtime or there's an event that could potentially cause an outage. So let's quickly try something. Let's say we want to look at your let's say your Kubernetes cluster, and we want to look at the CPU capacity. That's the like alert that we want to set. We are free to set based on whatever aggregation level we need. Let's say we want to do it at a mean level, and we want to add some particular filter let's say we have specific clusters that we want to monitor. We can set up those particular filters as well. We drill down, we look at what is the warning level that when do I want to get a warning, and let's say I just want it only when it's greater than 80%. And it also suggests using AI what is the recommended threshold to set, right? And let's say that for a critical warning, I need it to be 90% utilization. So it gives me the metric. So currently it's at this particular level, and the moment it crosses the 80 and 90%, I'll get a warning as well as a critical notification. We also look at the sensitivity. So let's say we want to monitor over 15 minutes, and if there are 3 consecutive violations, so if over 45 minutes we're able to, this thing is persisting, we are able to show a particular alert. We are also able to set grace periods, because sometimes there could be like downtime that is scheduled. So you can set a grace period if you think that application will start performing as normal. All right. So you also can set up some alert channels. Right now we have defined few emails, but you can also look at your Teams, or you can look at Slack integration. Let's say we want to notify Ben by email. All right. Let's say we want to do it for both critical and we don't want it for warning. So every time there's a critical alert, Ben gets notified on email, and this is how this particular alert looks like, right? So we have a preview, and you're able to see that CPU utilization, the Kubernetes cluster utilization, the capacity is more than 90%. So this is kind of the alerts that you can set, and these are very easy to set up. And your teams can set up based on SLAs or based on specific use cases that they're trying to monitor. So you don't have to, like always come back to the platform to identify issues. You can also get it when the application is not real time running; it's running on the background. Finally, in case you are interested in custom dashboards, you want dashboards that you want to report to your leadership, you can also set up custom dashboards based on different metrics that you want to measure. Right now, we look at the payments completed, the failed payments, and the transaction rates. And we also look at what are the error rates for particular, say, payment gateways, and the number of orders over time. So all these are business metrics that we have created on this particular custom dashboard. And this dashboard, you can share it with your teams as well, right? So you can add a particular filter, and you can create a lot of custom dashboards, and also filter it based on your particular requirements. Finally, we look at identifying issues faster with you just have to go down to the events page. You look at the different events that have been like logged in this particular portal, and let's say in this particular thing it says quote of the day, the calls are slower than normal. So I just click on this particular issue or this incident. It shows me that it's currently persisting. So you see that it's running real time. Its warning is, it's not a very severe or a critical issue, but it still creates a warning, and it shows me that one entity is affected. So you're able to see that there is a sudden spike, and you'll also be able to analyze it once you start drilling down. So let's look at what are some of the calls. So calls performed with this application by consumer as well as internally are being affected. And you can also look at what are some of the recommended actions, or if you've set up an automation policies, like removing particular message from the queue, you can automatically execute it from here. And the moment you execute it, this particular issue can get resolved without having to solve it manually. In case you want to solve it manually, you just click on view the triggering incident, and you go to analyze calls, and you have the same view that you had earlier. You are able to analyze individual calls. Let's say you want to do it over the last 6 hours, and it gives you a view of the different call traces, and it shows you where this error was identified. So it's highlighted it so that you can see that this particular like call caused this particular warning, and you can also see what are the endpoints that are affected, as well as the stack code level stack trace. So if you can just copy this and send it to your IT teams, it saves them a lot of time in actually getting down and doing a root cause analysis. And you also get information about the host and the different like status codes. Currently it's okay, but once the error was there, you'll see that an error message pops up. Finally, the most critical is, let's say at middle of the night you have an issue that's coming, and you want to quickly share with the team. They don't have the capacity to drill down to this. You can just share it from here, and once you share this particular link, they're able to just paste this on the server and directly come to the particular error without having to like wait through these complex calls and events. and just come down to the analysis of this particular error. I think with that we come to the end of the demonstration. So just to summarize, we do full stack monitoring at a 1 second granularity. This includes your infra, your application, your platforms, as well as your end user applications. And we do all of it with real time fidelity, so that once an error is identified, you can quickly drill down and do a dependency map of where that particular error originated. And once you identify the error, you can look at a stack trace, and you can also look at what are the endpoints that are affected and what could be cascading services that could be affected. So you're able to do all of this intuitively without having to jump between multiple screens or jump between siloed tools. And it makes your life far more easier, as well as makes your IT teams far more efficient in solving problems. So with that, we come to the end of the presentation of IBM Instana, our flagship observability platform for full stack observability in real time.
Thank you so much, Dhruva, for walking us through that demo as well. It was all well planned and well executed, and we got to see in real time how it works and how it gives you insights into your log traces and the problem that everyone mentioned in the poll question as well. So it kind of solves that. Now we have a couple of questions from the audience. Let's take that. Is Instana available in SaaS model or is it self-managed?
So IBM's strategy has always been hybrid. So we offer Instana as SaaS, and we do all the hard work where we manage the backend, we manage the platform, and we just give it to end users so that they can consume it. So it's available as SaaS. It's available in the AWS marketplace, and we also have on premises. So a lot of our large regulated customers use it on premises. So we offer, just to answer your question, Instana is available as a SaaS offering as well as for on-prem deployments.
Does Instana have integration with Prometheus for Kubernetes metrics?
So although we support Kubernetes monitoring with Instana, we integrate with open source platforms like Prometheus, Grafana, or it could be your other open source like monitoring tools that you want to bring in. We also have webhooks so that you can connect them, and in case you have a platform that is you want to integrate with Instana, you can very easily do it. And we support a lot of open source tools, and we also support open telemetry. So some of the applications support today open telemetry, where it exposes certain metrics. So you can ingest all of that on Instana and create these custom dashboards, and we'll take in all the data and contextualize that for you.
Does Instana offer creating complex alerts like SLO alerts based on K8 metrics?
So we do support creating SLO alerts. Right now, we have not come to the point where we are creating SLA based alerts, but for specific objectives, we can create smart alerts and dashboards for that. That's something that you can definitely do. And for this, we usually engage the client engineering team from IBM, or we work with the technology sales team, and we kind of bring the teams together to create your particular alerts and dashboards, so that we set it up for you and you can run it once you're comfortable with the platform.
Sangeet wants to know, how do you compare this with Datadog in terms of price and features? Here you can also talk a little bit about your licensing model.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So Instana, I think one of the key things is we do, while I would not like to comment on our competitors platform in this particular forum, but Instana's pricing is far better because we offer transparent pricing without any variable pricing. Second thing is we integrate with a lot of 300 plus technologies out of the box. So what we do is you don't have to manually instrument any of it, and you're able to bring it all on one platform. And the third thing is we have invested heavily in doing the R&D for building the AI models that can quickly trace these issues. So if you look at full stack monitoring, if you want the complete picture of your IT, you can do that with Instana. And maybe to do a deeper specific analysis of Instana was a competitor, we can definitely have a more detailed one-on-one conversation, and we stand up very strongly against the competitor that you mentioned.
So does Instana offer filtering of metrics and logs before ingestion to avoid excessive data retention cost in SaaS model? And how long do you retain metrics and logs?
Instana has different types of retention. So we have a 30, 60, and 90-day retention policy. And I very well understand the concern that you have, that your cost of saving the logs on the SaaS model go up. But if Instana has up to 325 GB of fair use policy, so we allow up to 325 gigabytes per virtual machine of metrics and logs to be stored without extra pricing. So that's a lot of data that we can actually store per VM. So let's say, for example, you have 10 virtual machines you want to monitor on a SaaS deployment of Instana. And so that's 10 into 325, that's 3250. So we support 3250 gigabytes of metrics and logs that can come in, and you don't have to pay anything for that. So Instana manages all of that on our IBM cloud, and you don't have to pay storage for that. but we can definitely integrate some of the monitoring tools like Prometheus, and we can also ensure that these metrics are not stored for a long time. So what I mentioned about the 1 second granularity, we roll it up periodically over a 1 day and 2 day, 1 week horizon, so that a lot of unnecessary data is not being collected. So we do automatic and automated roll-ups at the end of every 1 day, 7 day, or 1 month period. So only relevant data is being maintained, and you don't get a data lot of data that's being accumulated. So I hope that answers the question.
And in case of SaaS offering, what kind of limits Instana has in terms of metrics and logs? The same question.
So whatever you have on-prem, you have the exact capabilities on SaaS. The only difference is because enterprises aren't similar, right? Some of them have a lot of metrics that a lot of metrics are coming in. So we have a fair use policy, but today what we find in Indian customers is that is more than sufficient to meet their needs. And even if they exceed the fair use policy, the cost of meeting that extra storage gap is not very pricey, right? So it's extremely convenient for enterprises. They can give the management of storage to us. We take care of that so that they can focus on getting insights into their software.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dhruva. Thank you for answering those questions. And thank you to the audience for being so interactive as well. And those were some interesting questions, gave us more insight into Instana's features. And Dhruva very well explained and very meticulously planned your whole presentation and your demo. It gave us an insight into how observability, when done right, can be so useful for an organization to keep track of its application health and also to maintain efficiency and also cost optimize. So thank you to IBM Instana team, and thank you to ETCIO for facilitating this. Thank you to the audience for joining us this afternoon, and we hope to see you in the next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vaishnavi, and thank you for each of you who participated in today's session. We hope that we're able to add some value to your understanding of observability, and we're more than happy to have a conversation with you either in office or you can schedule a meeting, and we're more than glad to kind of take you through and explain it for your particular industry, and also give you some of the use cases that we can showcase and drive the point.
All right. On that note, we have a feedback form coming up soon, and we will have a QR code displayed. Kindly scan that and leave your feedback. It will be very important for us and for the IBM team. Thank you so much. I repeat, we will display a slide. It will have a QR code. Kindly scan that and kindly drop your feedback as well. We will focus on that. Thank you so much.
One
Yes.
of the participants have asked, what is the demerits of Instana? I think demerit of Instana is it can make you lazy, right? Because we do so much of the, we take away a lot of work from your IT teams, and we make them, focus on productive work. So I think that would be one of the demerits, that you get so used to the platform that enterprises don't want to switch away from it. So that would probably be a demerit. But as such, there are no demerits of Instana. We are one of the most strongly competitive platforms in the observability space, and we've been a leader for quite some time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dhruva. So here's the QR code. Kindly scan the same and kindly drop your feedback. We look forward to the same. We will see you soon in the next session. Thank you so much.